Be still and know that you are, that this stillness is your reality. Neville Goddard. Pause for a moment. Let those words settle into you. Could it be that all the striving, all the grinding, all the desperate efforts to be better were never necessary? Could it be that the very act of trying to improve yourself has been the greatest obstacle to your own manifestations? Today, I invite you to step into a radical truth. You have nothing to fix. You have nothing to add. You already are the person capable of living your highest dreams. You have simply been taught to forget it. You see, we live in a world that glorifies the hustle, that preaches the gospel of endless self-optimization. It tells you that unless you are constantly improving, constantly producing, constantly doing more, you are falling behind. And you believed it because you were taught to. But what if I told you that this relentless pressure to improve yourself isn't your personal choice at all? What if it was planted there, nurtured by forces far larger and colder than you ever imagined? In these next minutes, we will unveil the machinery behind this illusion. We will see how economic systems, political agendas, and cultural narratives have manufactured the very feeling that you are not enough as you are. And more importantly, we will return to the truth that Neville Goddard spoke so clearly. Manifestation is not a matter of fixing yourself. Manifestation is the art of assuming that you already are what you desire to be. As Neville said, you rise to a higher level of being by claiming it, not by earning it. Today you will remember how to claim your power, without effort, without permission, without delay. So as you listen, stay open, feel the stirring of your own being, and ask yourself quietly, if I needed to change nothing, if I could create by simply being, what would I dare to claim right now? Let us begin. Pause and consider. When you feel the urge to improve yourself, where does that impulse come from? Most believe it is their own will, their own noble ambition pushing them forward. But if you listen more carefully, you may notice that this voice is not truly yours. It was trained into you. It was shaped before you had the ability to choose. From childhood, you were told to be better, to do more, to achieve faster. You were measured by grades, performance, appearance, and productivity. Success was dangled before you like a prize just beyond your grasp. Improvement was not offered as a joyful expression of life, but as a condition for acceptance. Neville warned about this trap when he said, "Do not seek for signs. Signs follow. They do not precede." The world teaches you to chase signs of success, to pursue external proof that you are worthy. But your true creative power does not depend on evidence. It depends on assumption. What you call choice is often nothing more than conditioning. Like a horse trained to run toward a moving finish line, you believe you are choosing to race. You are simply repeating what you were taught to believe necessary. Imagine a garden where the seed believes it must strain and toil to become a tree. It does not know that its entire destiny is already within it. It doubts the life force that is already planted inside its being. You have been trained to doubt yourself in the same way. You were taught to believe that power, freedom, and worth must be earned through constant labor. But manifestation is not the reward of effort. Manifestation is the expression of being. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue feeling that it is fulfilled until that which you feel objectifies itself. There is no prerequisite. There is no permission required. There is only the choice to assume." So I ask you, where in your life have you been trying to become something instead of simply accepting that you already are it? Pause and let that question move through you. You are not here to prove yourself. You are here to express what is already within you. Now we turn to the systems that first planted this false urgency. If you step back and look at the wider picture, you will see that the pressure to endlessly improve yourself did not arise naturally. It was not born from your spirit. It was manufactured to serve a system. In the late 20th century, a shift took place. Economic systems were reshaped under the banner of neoliberalism, a philosophy that placed faith in free markets, privatization, and deregulation. Under this new way of thinking, society was no longer seen as a fabric of relationships and mutual support. It was reimagined as a marketplace where each individual must compete for survival. You were not asked who you wished to be. You were told what you needed to become in order to maintain your market value. And so quietly, the logic of the market seeped into the logic of the self. Productivity became morality. Efficiency became virtue. Success became proof of worth. Neville taught, stop measuring yourself by anything outside of you. Assume you are what you want to be and let the world reflect it. But the world around you trained you to do the opposite, to measure constantly, to doubt constantly, to seek proof before belief. Imagine a world where a tree must produce a certain number of leaves to be considered valuable. Imagine the anxiety it would feel each spring, counting its own branches, doubting its own right to exist. You have been made to live under that kind of pressure. The push for self-optimization is not personal ambition. It is systemic conditioning. You have been asked to treat yourself as a product, constantly upgrading, branding, selling, all to stay competitive in a market that only rewards the few. The tragedy is not only that you suffer under this pressure. The tragedy is that you have come to believe that this suffering is normal, even noble. But Neville reminds you, you are not a product. You are not an asset. You are imagination itself, creating reality not through optimization, but through assumption. So I ask you now, what parts of yourself have you been treating as projects to fix rather than truths to embody? Breathe into that question. What you seek is not earned through competition. It is revealed through your willingness to believe that you already are what you desire to be. We will now see how this system was deliberately constructed. The transformation of human life into a competition of isolated individuals was not an organic development. It was not the natural unfolding of history. It was the result of deliberate policies, strategic messaging, and the slow conditioning of belief systems over decades. To understand how deeply the idea of self-optimization has infiltrated your mind, you must first see how it was sewn into the fabric of society. In the aftermath of the Second World War, many nations embraced economic models that prioritized collective well-being, public health care, workers' rights, social safety nets. The aim was to rebuild societies devastated by war and to prevent the return of the extreme inequalities that had fueled instability. For a time, it seemed that humanity was moving toward a more compassionate world. But in the 1970s, cracks began to appear. Economic crises, inflation, and political unrest opened the door for new ideas. Ideas that had been waiting patiently in the shadows. These ideas were not new. They had been nurtured for decades by economists like Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman, who preached the supremacy of free markets and the dangers of government intervention. According to their vision, society should not protect the vulnerable. It should reward the strongest. Success was evidence of virtue. Failure was proof of weakness. When Margaret Thatcher rose to power in Britain and Ronald Reagan in the United States, these theories found their champions. They swept into government with a promise of renewal, freedom, and prosperity. But the freedom they offered was a narrow kind. The freedom of corporations to grow unchecked, the freedom of wealth to concentrate at the top, the freedom of individuals to be left entirely alone to sink or swim. Taxes were slashed for the wealthy. Regulations that protected workers and consumers were dismantled. Public services were privatized. Underneath the slogans of empowerment, a new order took hold, one that shifted the risks of life from society onto the individual. Neville Goddard taught, "Man moves in a world that is nothing more or less than his consciousness objectified." When you live in a society shaped by neoliberalism, you are living in a consciousness that has objectified competition, scarcity, and the myth of individual blame. You are immersed in a system that whispers constantly, "You alone are responsible for your success. You alone are to blame for your failure." The spread of neoliberalism was not limited to government policies. Its architects understood that to truly reshape society, they needed to reshape culture itself. Universities began to reward scholars who promoted free market thinking. Prestigious prizes were created, like the so-called Nobel Prize in Economics, funded not by Alfred Nobel, but by a Swedish bank, to elevate thinkers who aligned with the new order. Media outlets, funded by corporate interests, saturated the public with stories that glorified entrepreneurship, competition, and rugged individualism. Even the language changed. Citizens became consumers. Communities became markets. Relationships became networks of mutual advantage. Everywhere you turned, you were being taught that your value was tied to your productivity, your efficiency, your ability to compete. The spirit of cooperation was replaced by the spirit of competition. The idea that a society could nurture its members gave way to the idea that only the strong deserve to thrive. It is no accident that today, people feel more isolated, more anxious, and more burdened than ever before. You are not just facing personal challenges. You are living inside an entire system designed to make you feel perpetually not enough. Neville's wisdom pierces this veil. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe this is the only reason you do not see it. He did not say, work until you deserve it. He did not say, struggle until you prove it. He said, assume it now, believe it now, live it now. The world around you tells a different story because it was built to sustain an economy, not to nurture your soul. It rewards endless striving because endless striving keeps markets alive. But your soul is not for sale. Your being is not a commodity. Think of a great oak tree. It does not negotiate its right to grow. It does not improve itself to earn sunlight. It simply is. It unfolds according to the life already planted within it. In the same way, you were never meant to climb an invisible ladder of worthiness. You were never meant to measure your value by the world's unstable scales. So I ask you, how much of your striving has been based on an invisible agreement you never consciously made? How much of your energy has been spent trying to win a game that you did not design and that you do not have to play? Breathe into those questions. The historical spread of neoliberalism is not just a political story. It is the story of how you were taught to doubt your own being. But once you see the architecture of the illusion, you can refuse to live by its terms. Neville said, dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part. You are not here to adapt yourself to a broken world. Pause here for a moment. If something within you is beginning to realize that the pressure to constantly improve was never truly yours, you are already waking up to the truth. When you feel ready, check the pinned comment. There, you will find something that will help you move even more firmly into the reality where you no longer chase, but claim who you are. Let us continue. You are here to assume a higher world and to watch the outer scene reshape itself around you. The spread of neoliberal ideas was not only a matter of policy changes or economic shifts. It was also a carefully orchestrated campaign to reshape public perception, to change the very way people thought about themselves, society, and success. The champions of free market ideology understood that real power lies in shaping belief. If you can influence what people believe about the world, you no longer need to force them into compliance. They will police themselves. They will willingly adapt their lives to fit the vision you have planted. In the late 20th century, major corporations and wealthy foundations poured resources into think tanks, academic institutions, and media outlets. They funded research that glorified deregulation and privatization. They rewarded scholars who promoted competition as the highest good. They created awards, fellowships, and entire university departments dedicated to advancing the new economic gospel. Even the Nobel Prize in Economics, often assumed to be part of Alfred Nobel's original legacy, was actually created later by the Swedish central bank, heavily influenced by the financial elite. This prize was not neutral recognition of intellectual achievement. It was a tool to anoint those whose ideas served the interest of the few. Media outlets, too, were shaped by these forces. Newspapers, television, films, and later digital platforms celebrated the myth of the self-made individual, the entrepreneur who rises from nothing through sheer grit and hustle. At the same time, stories of collective action, solidarity, and shared responsibility quietly disappeared from public view. You were taught to see yourself as a lone actor in a giant marketplace, responsible for every success, guilty for every failure. You were trained to believe that needing help was weakness, that resting was laziness, that interdependence was shameful. Neville Goddard offers a radically different view. He taught, all that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. What you see in the outer world is the projection of collective assumptions. It is not ultimate reality. When you believe the world is a marketplace, you begin to live as if your soul must be bought and sold. When you believe you are alone, you cut yourself off from the true source of creation, your own infinite imagination. Imagine living in a house where every mirror is warped, where every reflection shows you as smaller, weaker, more desperate than you truly are. After enough time, you would begin to believe the reflection instead of questioning the mirror. This is what has happened on a massive scale, but there is a way out. The moment you recognize that the narratives you have accepted were planted, not born within you, you gain the power to reject them. You gain the power to assume a different truth, one not based on scarcity, competition, or endless proving. Neville said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persist in that assumption, and it will harden into fact. Not because the world grants you permission, but because your assumption reshapes the world itself. So I ask you, what beliefs about work, worth, and success have you accepted without ever consciously choosing them? And what would happen if you dared to choose differently? Feel that possibility open within you. Once the world was recast as a marketplace, it was only a small step to recast individuals as market actors. In the new logic of neoliberalism, you are no longer simply a human being. You are a brand, a project, a product to be optimized and sold. You are taught to view every aspect of yourself, your skills, your appearance, your personality, even your leisure activities, as assets to be managed and improved for maximum return. Rest is no longer simply rest. It must be productive rest contributing to your future efficiency. Creativity is no longer the joy of expression. It becomes a portfolio to monetize. Even relationships become networking opportunities. The soul is pressed into service, made to labor under the constant expectation of improvement, visibility, and profitability. Neville Goddard's teachings stand in direct opposition to this distortion. He said, "The world is yourself pushed out. Ask yourself what you want and then give it to yourself. Do not condition it, just feel that it is done." There is no need to build a better brand of yourself. There is only the need to assume the feeling of your fulfilled desire. Imagine a river trying to market itself, comparing its flow to other rivers, branding itself for tourists, striving to be more efficient in its movement. The river would lose its essence. It would lose the effortless truth of its being. You are not here to market yourself to life. You are here to embody life itself. Under neoliberalism, identity becomes fragmented into endless projects for self-improvement. You are never simply living. You are curating, optimizing, performing. Every action becomes a calculated move in an invisible marketplace where your value is constantly under review, and yet, the deeper truth remains untouched. Neville taught that creation is finished. Everything you desire already exists as a reality within consciousness. Your task is not to earn it. Your task is to assume it and to live from that assumption until the world reflects it. The culture around you insists that you must struggle endlessly to upgrade yourself to match your dreams, but your true power lies in knowing that you are already the dream realized, waiting only for your assumption to make it visible. Ask yourself, if there were no audience, no marketplace, no competition, who would you allow yourself to be? If there were no social media profiles, no resumes, no ladders to climb, what would you feel free to imagine for yourself? Breathe into that possibility. The self you are asked to optimize is a shadow. The true self, your I am, is already whole, already sufficient, already radiant. Neville said, "Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world respond to it." You are not a brand. You are not a product. You are not a market actor. You are the operant power of awareness itself. As we move forward, we will see the hidden cost of this marketplace mentality, the growing epidemic of loneliness that touches even the most outwardly successful lives. When life is reduced to competition, and individuals are cast as isolated market actors, loneliness becomes inevitable. The structure of neoliberal society does not merely overlook human connection, it actively undermines it. Relationships are no longer valued for their own sake, but are often viewed through the lens of utility. Friendships are networks. Communities are markets. Even love can be twisted into a transaction. This profound isolation carries a heavy cost. The World Health Organization has identified loneliness as a major health risk, comparing its dangers to those of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is linked to heart disease, depression, anxiety, and premature death. Yet the culture rarely acknowledges this wound. Instead, it offers more prescriptions for self-improvement, encouraging individuals to fix their loneliness by optimizing their social skills, their appearance, or their emotional intelligence. Once again, the burden is placed on the individual. The solution is always framed as something you must accomplish alone. But Neville Goddard reveals a different path. He taught, there is no one to change but self, not through external effort, but through the inner act of assumption. True connection is not built through performance. It is built through being. When you assume your unity with life more, when you feel yourself already connected to all that is, you no longer seek validation outside of yourself. You radiate a presence that draws others to you effortlessly. Imagine sitting beneath a tree whose roots stretch deep into the earth, whose branches stretch wide into the sky. The tree does not strive to connect. It simply is, and in its being, it becomes a source of shelter, nourishment, and life. You too can live from that center of stillness. So I ask you, What would it feel like to know that you are already connected to the whole of life? Feel it, not as a wish, but as a fact. In this awareness, loneliness dissolves. In this awareness, you remember that you were never meant to compete for belonging. You were born belonging. Despite the obvious barriers erected by the system, many cling to the belief that if they just work harder, optimize better, or improve faster, they will finally achieve the freedom they seek. This attachment to an increasingly unattainable dream has been called cruel optimism, the idea that the very thing you hope will save you is the thing that keeps you trapped. People blame themselves for systemic failures. They internalize exhaustion as personal weakness. They view burnout not as a warning sign, but as a moral failure to endure more. Neville Goddard, however, offers a message of radical mercy. He said, "You do not earn your desires. You assume them. You live in them until they become visible." He did not teach struggle. He taught stillness. He taught imagination as the true source of transformation. In the world shaped by neoliberalism, where success is mythologized and suffering is privatized, it is easy to believe that your exhaustion is proof that you are not enough. But in truth, your exhaustion is a sign that you have been trying to achieve by force what can only be received by assumption. Imagine a bird trying to fly by, flapping harder and harder against a storm, not realizing it can ride the current of the wind. No amount of harder work will grant the bird the peace and grace that comes from surrendering to the natural flow. You, too, are invited to stop fighting. You are invited to remember that the life you desire is not awarded to you through effort, but through faith, the deep, quiet faith that your assumption is already real. Ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped trying to deserve your desires? What would change if you stopped treating your dreams as prizes and began treating them as facts? Feel that shift within you. The word freedom carries a powerful weight. It conjures images of open landscapes, fearless choices, the ability to live fully and without restraint. For most of human history, freedom meant something collective, the shared liberation of a people from oppression, the building of communities where dignity was protected and mutual care was the norm. But under the influence of neoliberal ideology, the meaning of freedom has been quietly but drastically altered. Freedom was redefined not as the flourishing of communities, but as the radical isolation of individuals. It was no longer about the power to live a full human life with others, but about the absence of interference from others, no matter the consequences. You were told you were free when no one was responsible for you, and you were responsible for no one. This idea was celebrated as the highest good. Self-sufficiency was praised. Dependence was shamed. Needing help, needing connection, needing community, all were rebranded as signs of weakness, even failure. Yet this kind of freedom is a hollow freedom. It leaves people isolated, vulnerable, and burdened with responsibilities that no individual was ever meant to carry alone. It strips life of its natural interconnectedness, forcing every person to behave like a solitary entrepreneur, marketing and managing their own existence. Neville Goddard's teachings offer a vision of freedom that could not be more different. He taught that true freedom is not the absence of ties, but the recognition of your own creative power. Freedom or imprisonment, happiness or misery, good or evil, depends on the attitude of mind of the individual, not upon external conditions. In Neville's world, freedom is internal. It is the knowing that your reality is shaped not by outer circumstances, but by your inner assumptions. It is the realization that you are not a victim of the world you see. You are the cause of it. In the neoliberal vision, freedom isolates you into a perpetual competition. In Neville's vision, freedom anchors you into unity with the creative power of the universe. The culture that surrounds you glorifies the isolated individual who triumphs alone against all odds, the entrepreneur who builds an empire from nothing, the artist who rises without support, the worker who climbs every ladder without assistance. But beneath these stories lies a hidden truth. No one truly thrives alone. Humans are relational beings. We are born from others, we grow with others, and we find fulfillment through connection. When freedom is twisted into isolation, it becomes a trap, a lonely race where the finish line keeps moving further away. Neville understood this. When he spoke of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, he was not describing a solitary act of struggle. He was describing a shift of consciousness that naturally draws new circumstances, people, and opportunities into your life. Manifestation is not the triumph of a disconnected self. It is the alignment of your inner world with the infinite whole. Imagine a tree standing alone in a barren field exposed to every storm, every drought, every change of season. Now imagine that same tree standing in a forest, its roots intertwined with countless others, the soil rich and protected by the shared life around it. Which tree is truly free? The isolated tree, vulnerable to every threat? Or the tree supported by the unseen strength of the whole? The false freedom offered by neoliberal culture demands that you be the isolated tree. But the real freedom Neville points to invites you to recognize your union with the creative force itself, a union that cannot be severed. When you know that you are one with the creative power, you no longer fear lack. You no longer compete desperately for limited resources. You no longer measure your worth by your ability to stand alone. You understand that life flows through you, and that your desires are the whispers of the larger life-seeking expression. Neville said, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live." True freedom is the ability to change your concept of self at will. It is the freedom to declare, from within, who you are, without waiting for permission, approval, or external validation. But to claim this freedom, you must let go of the false version you have been sold. You must release the idea that to need others, to rest, to ask for help, or to seek community is a weakness. You must reclaim your birthright as a creator, not as a competitor. Ask yourself, what does freedom mean to you when stripped of all the market-driven illusions? Is it isolation? Is it endless self-sufficiency? Or is it the simple, profound knowing that your imagination is the only true authority in your life? Feel that possibility settle into you. Feel the immense relief of no longer needing to fight for your worth, to race against others, or to win a game that was never designed for your liberation. True freedom is silent. It is inward. It is the quiet assurance that you are already all you wish to be, and that nothing outside of you has the power to define or diminish that truth. So, stop improving and start assuming. Now you can see what was hidden. The demand to endlessly improve yourself was never your soul speaking. It was a voice planted by systems designed to keep you striving, competing, and doubting. But your power was never found in the endless chase. It was, and is, found in stillness, in the quiet assumption that you already are what you seek. Neville Goddard taught, "Man is all imagination. Therefore, man must be wherever he is in imagination." He did not say you must earn your desires. He said you must assume them, live from them, and let them harden into fact. You are not a brand to polish. You are not a project to perfect. You are the operant power, shaping your reality from the unseen depths of your own consciousness. Freedom is not gained by climbing higher. Freedom is recognized by standing still in the truth of who you already are. Today, I invite you not to strive harder, but to assume more boldly. Tonight, before sleep, enter the drowsy state Neville spoke of. Imagine one scene, simple, vivid, that would imply your wish is fulfilled. Feel it, gently and naturally as though it were already so. Rest in that feeling. Do not chase. Do not beg. Simply know. Your assumption, once accepted, will reshape the world around you without effort. You were never broken. You were never behind. You are, now and always, the creator of your experience. Begin now. Assume now. Live now, as the fulfilled being you have always been. And before you go, make sure to check the pinned comment. There is something there waiting for you, something that will meet you exactly where you are right now. Trust yourself enough to take that next small step.